Hello, everybody, and welcome to this free episode of TF. And you'll note that no one is saying anything in radio voice, which means that Milo is not with us this week. He's off at a special Keir Starmer voice training boot camp. Yeah, that's right. He's getting voice coaching to sound more like Keir Starmer. He's getting facial Keirization surgery, where they're adding chin and jowl to him.
So it's like a form of mewing, but
Yeah.
you instead of becoming like the Chad, you become the Keir.
Yeah, that's right.
Sort of centrist dysphoria. You look in the mirror and you're astonished and horrified to find that you have principles.
And, however, sitting in for Milo today is Thomas O'Mahony, the host of the Beneath the Skin podcast, one of the hosts of Lions Led by Donkeys, good friend to all of us here in the studio, and long time coming on the mic. How's it going?
Oh, thank you very much for having me. It feels weird sitting here, but I'm very happy to be here.
It's your own voice you're cutting if you do overtalk.
Yeah, I just don't want to create too much work for myself.
You finally achieved supply teacher status, Riley, and actually deployed an unironic, it's your own time you're wasting.
Look, everybody knows that aside from wanting to have the right gravel for the garden, I just want the children to stay in line.
I'm the podcasting equivalent of like when the teacher rolls the TV into the room. Is like, okay, you have this now instead of a lesson. Instead of Milo doing bits, you have just the hired Irishman.
That's right.
I used to love lessons at school where we had the hired Irishman.
Well, look, you have to hire them nowadays.
Yeah, you can't just kidnap us and send us to, like, Barbados.
It's not even becoming gangs anymore. What's the world coming to, you know?
Look, it's because of woke you can no longer press gang the Irish, and I think that's a disgrace.
Hey, everyone says British politics really went to shit when the threat of the Irish really fell apart, so,
All right. So we are actually going to be talking all about tattooing today because I found one and you found another very us tattooing startups. I really didn't expect. I should have known better. I've been doing this show for years. I should have known that the two of the various genders of startup we talk about, no surveillance tattoos, not yet, but some of the other ones, right? They both, of course, they would be in every single industry, and why not tattooing? And when I read about my one, I was just like hit after hit after hit. They do everything that we like talking about.
Yeah, you sent this to me the other morning when I was on the bus to the studio, and I was reading it just going, what the fuck? Who actually thought this was a good idea? And of course, as I found out, it's people that, one, don't have any tattoos, and two, don't actually know anything about tattoos.
However, before we get to all of that, I want to do a little bit of news and then the promised Neom update. The news, of course, that we're going to be talking about is
it's all bad, folks.
Well,
surprisingly,
yeah, it's all bad. It's I'd say the continual performative not understanding of things in UK politics continues at pace. As an SNP motion supporting a ceasefire in Gaza is voted down, whipped down by Labour, of course voted down by the Tories. Well, at the same time, the Supreme Court struck down the Tories' sort of Rwanda deportation plans, causing the Tories to then say, well, I guess we're going to try to end the Supreme Court, which I suppose you could say also ends the UK's 2-decade-long experiment with having a Supreme Court.
Yeah, 2009.
Yeah. Oh, less.
Brought in.
Yeah. So all I'm seeing is the managerial wings of the two parties yet again trying to hold everyone together along lines that are, say, unpopular among their more sort of, let's say, impassioned and committed supporters, and yet the center cannot seem to hold. Yet again, the center is not holding.
I mean, I do want to say, first of all, we have to acknowledge that probably our most easily called shot has actually transpired now, and Suella Braverman is now out as Home Secretary. But this now does lead to the situation where the Rwanda deal has been struck down, and the guy who has been told to implement it now, James Cleverly, is like sort of more or less on record privately calling it batshit, and is just going to do it anyway. So, two great moments of principles in British politics.
The plan is to make a law declaring Rwanda a safe country to send.
Yeah, which is not going to work because it'll work domestically. You can make the Supreme Court pretend that Rwanda is safe, but you can't make the European Court of Human Rights do it. And so the noise after this is, we should just leave the ECHR. That's the sort of the Lee Anderson demand is, first of all, defy the Supreme Court and put planes in the air anyway. And second of all, leave the ECHR, which would be disastrous and insane. And so therefore, maybe they're going to make a run at it. I don't know. We'll see how far the kind of leash of managerialism extends.
I mean, to be fair, given the current revolving door of British politics, I think we're about 2 months away from the Tories trying to resurrect Oswald Mosley.
Yeah, I mean, this is basically what they did. Was they tried to create a cabinet of diverse modern Mosleys.
They're playing the Yu-Gi-Oh! Exodia cards, trying to reassemble Oswald Mosley.
And it's what we talked about last episode in the bonus about revolutionary conservatism, right? Is that everyone is a revolutionary conservative until the revolution of conservatism starts looking at an institution that you happen to like, right? But the difference is that the Conservative Party is designed to facilitate orderly revolutionary conservatism. And so having done what they've done for the last several years, they're now just going to then look at the the ECHR. They're already gearing up. You can see the columnists sort of starting to throw this stuff at the wall to see what sticks. But saying, treaty obligations, those were designed for a time of global instability, conflict, and mass migrations of people under increasingly difficult, conditions for production of food and the provision of energy in the developing world, very much unlike today.
Of course.
Yeah, we why bother with them?
Well, those were designed for times of black and white films and people moving slightly too quickly because they hadn't figured out how to regularize the film speed yet. Whereas now in our sort of modern camera phone age, these things, are passé.
Well, it's at the tilt. Those were for when the height of comedy was sticking your head into a fireplace and coming out with soot all over your face. That was when those were designed for. It wasn't designed for our, that happened era.
So really, it's a kind of counterpoint to trying to bring back Oswald Mosley's. We need to bring back Buster Keaton then. We need to bring back guys dancing to yakety sax, houses falling over,
Once you start bringing back guys, where will it end?
Bring back Ramses II, that's what I say.
Why not? Look, that's what we need to sort out the bloody EU, to get rid of Frontex, is the sea peoples have to make a return.
Or alternatively, we'll fix Israel-Palestine as well, because it's a one-state solution, but the state is Egypt, and pharaonic Egypt.
Okay, perfect. That is the solution we have that's going to make everybody the most mad, which is restore the pharaoh of the upper and lower kingdom, and then have them also restore their Levantine empire. But we need to balance that out. I think Iraq should be...
It's an ancient land claim, thousands of years old. There's archaeological finds showing that there's an Egyptian presence there.
We need also to then maybe give, the Neo-Babylonians a nuclear weapon so that they can counterbalance Egyptian influence in the... Many say the nuclear weapon is the chariot of the modern age. So they can counterbalance it. I've been listening to Tides of History again.
Yeah, you never hear anyone talking about, Agamemnon the Great. We need to create a new balance of justice that is the feather equal to a drop from the puddle?
But on
if you don't drink from the puddle, Amit the Devourer calls you gay.
But the other thing I was briefly mentioning, these sort of, let's say, developments in parliamentary politics. I was mentioning a motion for a ceasefire in Gaza earlier. That was put forward by the SNP, and 50 Labour MPs, including Jess Phillips, went...
Yep. You don't have to hand it to her. She doesn't have principles. She just has a very Muslim constituency, and she doesn't want to lose her seat.
Yep. Because then she'll have to write slightly different books, basically.
Yeah.
But the thing...
But you won't get all the expenses and stuff.
But the interesting thing about this is that, you think that, so much of it motivated in the UK is about this kind of, respectable constituency electoral politics. Whereas you look at in Ireland yesterday, a country that has been very, very pro-Palestine for the past like good few years, and there's a long-standing Irish and Palestinian solidarity. Like, we voted down a motion to expel the Israeli ambassador yesterday, and it just goes to show that like how much of it runs so deep underneath even the most, from the outside, like charitable perspectives of like, oh, the Irish government and parties like Sinn Féin are like sympathetic with the Palestinian struggle, but you won't expel the ambassador.
Well, the in our case, right? The what we had was an amendment to the King's speech calling for a ceasefire. Keir Starmer said, "Hang on, we're not going to vote for that. We're going to propose our own amendment to the King's speech in this regard, which will criticize." I'm quoting here: "Criticize how Israel has conducted a war, but stop short of calling for a ceasefire, and instead fall into line with the USA requesting 4-hour humanitarian pauses."
The Israelis should be able to try again.
Yeah, it's that. Look, you need might find upwards of 4-5 knives in the basement of a hospital, and then you have to like take 4 hours and try it again. But here essentially said that Starmer essentially said a ceasefire is not appropriate because it would freeze the conflict and embolden Hamas. But
if only we had some kind of like Keir Starmer impression just on deck. Sadly,
yeah. But to freeze the conflict would be beneficial at this point, surely.
It would be a lesser of two evils. Yeah. I mean, the ceasefire is the compromise position, right? Like at this point, because the Israelis have already gone in and they're not leaving. So to just kind of like stay where they are, having already created this like massive humanitarian crisis in Gaza, is yeah, I mean, Keir is sort of like accidentally correct that it's still going to have bad outcomes, but not for the reason that he thinks it is.
Well, the issue here is that, so I mean, from what I understand, there's a sort of acknowledgement that at this point, the Israelis aren't really going to listen to anyone anyway, right? So this, whatever way this was going to happen, this was very much more of like a stake your own position, because like materially, nothing is really going to sort of, they're not really going to change. So this was very much, not to say that it wasn't important as like a signaling measure, but it wasn't, I've seen some criticism like, oh, the Labour, like no one, like the Israelis and Netanyahu are not going to listen to the Labour Party, and that's why Keir Starmer's position is actually smart. But really what it comes down to is that he did not want to say the word ceasefire. So if you read like what he's written, there's a lot of stuff which like basically says it without saying the line. And it's not to say that like this was, the Labour amendment was just as good. But what seems very evident is that he did not want to say the words, "I am calling for a ceasefire." And that seems to be the important thing, because of the way that all of this has been spun. And I don't even think convincingly, but like among British media types, obviously, and then British political types, both of which are basically interchangeable to a degree, saying ceasefire is really shorthand in this word for "I support Hamas completely," which is a really weird, because I think you're right.
Just a really clean audio of you saying "I support Hamas completely."
But look, I am shaking my head to show that I disagree with it. But like the point being that the way that this has been spun ultimately means that you can't. Well, he's not saying the word ceasefire, and like one of the kind of criticisms is that you just need to say the word, Keir. You need to say the word. And the problem
then is... Say the word, Keir, or Ray will have to do it again.
But because the thing is that, like, the reason why, if this is a kind of like a materially useless vote, if it's only a vote of conscience, the only reason why you would have it as a whipped vote instead of as a vote of conscience is because you want to demonstrate to the US that you are going to be a sort of like suitable sort of allied leader who is going to be able to like marshal the parliamentary party behind you for whatever bullshit they want you to do.
Yeah, and one of the main reasons, right, that they just keep rumbling through Gaza, turning it into like a glassed desert, basically, right? One of the only reasons that they're able to do that is because in the UN Security Council of the countries in Western Europe and North America, both the governing and opposition parties all agree that they should be doing that. That is why the support goes so deep that it is universal, all major parties.
Well, and it also sort of exposes a darker thing, which is like, so one of the criticisms that's made in bad faith about the protesters is that, they keep saying their sentence from the river to the sea, and they're not saying stuff like, we are calling for a two-state solution along 1967 lines, but even then, we're willing to be flexible. Please don't get mad at us.
Calling for a one pharaonic empire.
That's what my placard will be saying this in the next protest.
So you just have the next one. You just have to wear the crown, the double crown.
Well, I think maybe
copyright TM. That's what we're gonna do for the next live show. We're all gonna wear the crown of the upper.
But I think the ceasefire creates a perfect balance because it allows for a perfect, puddle feather equivalence of there's the one word they all want to say and the one word that they don't.
Yeah, well,
yeah. I think the other thing too is that, one of the aims of the Hamas attacks, right, was to completely psychologically unbalance and sort of like expose all of Israel's politics and all of its policy. And it's kind of this thing. If you look at previous Israeli operations, if I can use that word, they talk about having like two clocks, right? You have like a military clock and you have a diplomatic clock. And at some point, the goodwill runs out, and the Americans tell you have to stop bombing Beirut, or you have to stop bombing Gaza, or whatever, and they do it. And now there's a real distinction where it's like, no, everyone is going mask off on the basis that there's been a kind of profound psychological shock that's happened.
They've done the vibe shift.
Yeah, the vibe shift has absolutely happened. But I think the only silver lining of this is that a lot of people are being made very, very sort of abruptly aware of exactly how nuts Israel is.
Well, I suppose this is sort of where I'm kind of stuck, because not stuck, but I'm sort of confused about where this all goes, because the way that I think you're right in the sense of thinking about previous operation or previous military operations they've done, because of how short these operations have been. The cycle sort of between these people are really going at it maybe a bit too much, to then now fighting's over and this was just a limited operation. The fact that this is not,
we can make the sad movies about how bad we all felt.
The fact that this is not happening is seems to be sort of changing overall perspective, which is also why it feels like reading the stuff written by defenders of the IDF makes me feel like I'm going insane. Because because you have to push those boundaries, the whole thing about, the IDF are a really, they are a really precise military, and they would never,
the most moral army in the world.
And they would never bomb a hospital. To actually bombing hospitals is good in some cases. The way that this has sort of been pushed, but to me, it sort of speaks to something much bigger, which is that, for all the sort of postulation about, why aren't pro-Palestinian people talking about a two-state solution? When they say this, they actually want to wipe out Israel, blah, blah, blah. Really what seems to sort of be the case is America and Europe, for the most part, have kind of accepted that Israel doesn't want a two-state solution.
Well, Israel wants to have everyone in Gaza move to Europe or America.
Right.
And the Europeans and Americans are saying, great, fine, we'll do it. Let's all participate in a process of ethnic cleansing, but much more directly now.
But I guess the sort of thing to sort of acknowledge then is that, even whatever happens, what seems to be the case is that what they have now figured out is, in order to support Israel at this point, means having to accept that the humanity of the Palestinians or the Gazans they just don't see, they can't see that anymore. The only
kind of the Israeli internal line has just become external, because it was always like that internal.
But also the Americans, and to a certain extent, the British line has very much been the same, which is if you want to have a politics that, or if you want to have a political system that is sort of US adjacent and therefore Israel, adjacent to Israel, at this point, the only thing you can do to really rationalize what's happening, the only way that you can sort of really think about, or to sort of say that this was the right thing to happen, is to sort of say that no, the Palestinians were disposable people. And I think that's a really dangerous kind of thing to go. And I don't even say precedent, because it's kind of happened before. We've seen it in Syria a lot, but the fact that this is now very much in full, because I guess for people who weren't paying attention to Syria very much, or had lost sort of attention, this is a very acute and very visual case study of this is what happens when you are just sort of deemed to be irrelevant for existence at this point.
Yeah, I don't think we've seen even the beginning of the sort of historical repercussions of this, because we're setting. I think you're right that this Syria, Armenia too. We're kind of like setting down a blueprint for what statecraft is going to be in the 21st century, and to no one's surprise, the answer is going to be genocide.
Well,
it seems.
if you assume most of I'm readying the jarring change in tone bell, by the way. But if you assume, right, that in the absence of states having positive projects of what they can do for you, and instead only really able to say we can benefit you, but at the expense of someone else, maybe we won't even give you anything. We're just going to punish people we know you don't like or enrage them or whatever at different levels. I mean, all of that is just if that's just what we say that states do now, then what we were doing is you're saying, well, this actor with a monopoly and the legitimate use of force is designed to antagonize people that are not favored by the in-group. That's it, right? Then I think that's what we've seen statecraft, foreign and domestic, become. I think pretty comprehensively.
Yeah, and I the backlash to that, I don't even know what that looks like. But I think it's fair to say that in a month, right, Biden has squandered more. Maybe goodwill isn't the right word, but I think he's done more damage to the US's reputation worldwide than Bush did in decades.
Yeah.
Like, it's insane. And
Rishi Sunak would have accomplished that as well, but we were already in the toilet.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, there's Zoomers on TikTok who are radicalizing themselves with Osama bin Laden's letter to America now. So that's great. That's cool.
Yeah, we're going to get the weirdest combination of TikTok brain from the past 6 months of people internalizing Ted Kaczynski's manifesto with Osama bin Laden.
So because there's nowhere else for them to go.
Yeah.
You know, there's always going to be these kind of like cranks. I mean, it feels a bit like minimizing to call Osama bin Laden a crank, but he was a crank also. And if you're going to decide that like the acceptable bounds of discourse are one party that supports, a humanitarian pause for 4 hours a day, another party that goes kill the bastards, and everyone else is de facto a member of Hamas, then of course some people are going to go, man, I should check out these Hamas guys. They might be onto something, because both of these other options sound fucking terrible.
And they're bringing back MLG no-scope montages on Twitter. They just need like the Call of Duty like hit markers.
I'm gonna see an Osama bin Laden video on TikTok with like Subway Surfers.
Oh, I've already seen it. I saw it this morning.
Anyway, I'm now going to ring my jarring change in tone bell, and I want to talk about a company called Black Dot.
Oh Christ!
Black Dot.
Yes, Black Dot.
I mean, it sounds pretty frightening already. Sounds like some kind of like security consultancy that like spies on journalists. You know?
No. Well, it is. I'll give you a hint. It is tattooing related.
Well, that wasn't a hint. You said it at the beginning of the episode, okay. So I do know that.
Well, I've given you a hint already. It's tattooing related.
It's called Black Dot.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, fucking smart tattoos. Gives you like an RFID thing so you can get into your building, because the only application we've got for wearables at the moment is like, key card.
No, because you said it wasn't a surveillance related thing, and that kind of is surveillance adjacent, isn't it?
That I'm sure. I am sure there is a tattooing startup somewhere that is putting QR codes on people so that you can like scan to win your shop at Morrison's.
Funnily enough, that's actually been like a really popular thing in the body mod scene for the past like 15 years. It's like people embedding RFID chips like in their hands and stuff. Mm-hmm. Like I've seen some people like
in that show Years and Years.
Oh yeah, it was.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's like companies that like get their employees chipped.
Yeah,
and they have like parties for it. It's really grim.
Yeah, like people in the body mod scene have been like inserting like different types of electronics, like stuff like bioluminescent stuff. So like you can go and buy your overpriced coffee with your hand and Apple Pay.
It is a new immersive experience that elevates a timeless art. So if you were hoping that tattooing was insufficiently elevated...
Wait, it said immersive. It's going to be some like augmented reality shit, right? If I look at my cool tattoo in Google Glass, then it like pops something up in AR.
That would at least be kind of cool. I'm afraid not.
Yeah.
Just think, and I know what this is, think so much lamer. Think Reddit.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh.
What?
Maximizing comfort, safety, and hygiene, Black Dot delivers an unparalleled immersive experience where art and science intersect. Relax in a futuristic setting and work with a team who listen. What's largely been off limits in tattooing, such as fine art, code-driven and generative art, rare street art, and legendary cover art, is now available thanks to Black Dot's powerful new technology.
It's not immersive. It's not immersive at all.
The tattoo robot.
Yes, Alice got it.
You like put your arm onto the big robot
I mean,
arm.
a gig economy tattoo artist. That's just being
That's
a tattoo
artist. Yeah,
Yeah.
that is true.
Well, we're changing the way people get tattoos, the way tattoo artists share their work, and the way the tattoo experience feels for everyone. Because that's right, we finally automated the tattoo artist.
So people have been trying to do this for a long time, and it's specifically people who aren't really immersed in like tattooing either as like a tattoo collector or a tattoo artist or someone who's just an enthusiast. Is people have always been asking like, oh, how can we remove the tattoo artist from the equation, in the same way that like the current stream of like, oh, we're going to create generative art to try and replace the artist is like, essentially it's like people who don't understand what tattooing is and just see it as, oh, this is a design going on the skin, thinking, well, what are the extraneous parts of like the cost, analysis of this, of what goes into it. And they're like, oh, well, the easiest thing to do is get rid of the tattoo artist because all I need is a PNG and a machine that can do it. And it completely misunderstands like tattooing as a not just an artistic art form, but a holistic art form, because like you're applying it to someone who is in pain. Like Alice, you recently got a tattoo as well.
I did, yeah.
And like the experience of like you have a machine that is designed to apply the design, but doesn't understand all of the variables that go into a tattoo.
Mm-hmm.
Like the simple fact that like a lot of people go and get tattoos and don't eat enough beforehand and then are at risk of passing out. Is the machine just going to like dig into your skin like you're the opening of Quake 3?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd like the idea of getting a tattoo, then passing out. The machine keeps going, and then there's just like a line, and then it continues on further up your wrist.
Yeah, and like the technical application that they've come up with this in terms of like the marketing materials, it's very similar to a style that's called like dot work, where you create a design using small dots, which I assume is a restriction of how they've built the machine, in the same way that like CNC and like 3D printing work, where it's like printed in layers. And like how you do the actual application of a tattoo is like you do it in layers, you do outline, shading, color, fills, and they probably do it that way. But it's like, one, the tattoos are shit. I'll just say that.
You don't like the Mona Lisa?
The Mona Lisa is an overrated painting. Leonardo da Vinci was a fucking hack. I will say that.
Size of a postage stamp too. It's not worth the.
Yeah, it should have stayed stolen. But essentially, like this is like the tech VC kind of backed arena trying to create a problem where there isn't one. They're like trying to derive extra profits out of an industry that is like almost universally everyone is self-employed. So I can't imagine a shop spending like 200 grand buying one of these machines.
They're not going to have those in shops, because I worked out a little bit more how this company works.
Okay.
And it combines so many themes together.
Okay, hit me.
Their plan is, and again, they have a lot of venture capital investment from, I believe, Grayscale, which is very funny because it's black dots. It's that one's for me. And they said, oh, we realized that no one can really use our machine safely. So instead we don't have parlors, right? We don't have tattoo parlors. We have tattoo studios, and we own the studios. And then you come in, you get a tattoo. And you get a tattoo from our pre-made list of designs that you can have. And so a tattoo artist will then submit their design, like Spotify, for example, to Black Dot, and then people can go and get it.
Well, like
so you just like sell flashes to them.
Yeah, and like this is how generally the tattoo industry for the past 100 years has operated. Like in the 20th century, you had like people like Spalding and Rogers who were like incredible artists and would design flash you would order like a mail order catalog, you send them money, and you get an envelope back that has like acetate stencils and like a sheet that you can put up on the wall of like their bestsellers. And that's just kind of how it's worked. But it's like the licensing of the work where a lot of designs are building on previous work, like people like, you know, Ed Hardy, Phil Sparrow, like really influential artists who like created a lot of stuff that's still being tattooed today. They don't own that art, and it's a legal kind of gray area because it came up in the past couple of years with the artist who designed Mike Tyson's face tattoo. When that design was used in The Hangover 2 or 3, he brought them to court and said, I own that design. You unlicensed replicated it from me. And similarly, I think might have been Jeff Hardy, the wrestler. His tattoos were replicated in a WWE game. And obviously he owns essentially the copyright for his own image, but does he own the copyright and licensing, you know, deals for his tattoos that someone else has designed?
Well, in this case, Black Dot says, don't worry about that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I want to say one thing also before we go back into like the licensing and stuff. They do say, oh, don't worry, you don't need a person doing this. It doesn't need to be a personal interaction.
Yeah, just kind of like allow yourself to be put into the machine that presumably like restrains you, because you have to be like, you know, held still, like to have the surface for the tattoo.
Yeah,
is like not monitoring you in any way. I mean, this is quite horny apart from anything else.
No,
like not intentionally.
No, but see,
like,
there's a great opportunity if you create the empathy detector, so you can sell it part and part with this machine. So I was like, oh, it seems you're experiencing discomfort. Would you like a cup of water, a Mars bar, a can of Coke?
No. I don't even need the empathy detector. I just need to like change this from tattoos to like a couple of other applications, and I'm quite happy.
Can the machine recognize a safe word? That is the question.
You can't risk that with an AI because it might be like, for the ultimate thrill, I have deleted the safe word. I will now be turning you into paper clips.
Yeah, we are creating Shodan from Cybershock or System Shock.
So
fantastic.
What they say though for how they're tailoring it to different people is they say skin behaves differently in different parts of the body and on different people. Black Dot was built to treat skin as the ultimate canvas, worthy of masterpieces, enabling unprecedented detail and precision. What they're essentially saying is, we'll do some test dots on another part of your body, and then based on how that goes, then we'll use the right amount of ink at the right depth and so on.
Fucking do test dots on me? Like, why do I have to? You've made tattooing worse. Like, one of the things that's impressive about getting a tattoo is that you just do it, right? You just do it from scratch. You don't need to like do a lot of like bullshit tests on my skin in another area that leave me with like a permanent little like dot forever marking me out as the dipshit that like put my hand in the fucking device.
Yeah, you're getting the fucking tattoo version of the Gom Jabbar.
Yeah. So they say it's a fast, safe, and comfortable offering for more possibilities for artists and tattoo seekers alike.
Okay, first of all, the comfortable thing is flagrant false advertising, right? Because unless you're changing what you're actually doing in terms of like tattooing someone, you're still like stabbing them a bunch.
Yeah,
right.
And like, there's also like immediately a couple of like technical problems with this. One, how does it accurately measure for skin tone? Because any tattoo,
they have a database of all the skin tones.
Okay, so they just have their...
That's been bought by like so many other startups. Don't even worry about those.
But like, also, skin has like different qualities. So say I actually have, despite how tattooed I am, I have quite bad skin for tattoos because I bleed quite a lot. Yeah, you've lovely skin. You don't need to show me your forearm.
You bleed so much because you're so hard.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You know, I don't need the blood.
Yeah.
What you fill with liquid for?
We're going to take that blood out and replace it with the puddle. It's the only way you can prove that you're not gay. But on the skin thing is like, you, for the simple fact of like the thickness of your skin, needles are like quite finicky as well. So like, depending on...
don't worry about that, they say.
Like, simply measuring that, oh, you should only put the needle in X amount of depth to go into the through the epidermal layer. Like, it's completely misunderstanding. Like, tattoos stay because the artist can like do one stroke of the machine and immediately figure out, okay, this person's like skin is a little bit thicker. I need to go deeper. I need to go slower in order to maybe induce less bleeding or bruising. And it's just like, yeah, let's do a machine that cannot gauge anything at all, but it has a Pantone color swatch for every ethnicity.
So you might be wondering, what kind of a person would some kind of a tattoo crazed maniac would try to automate tattoos? Let me tell you about Joel Pennington. Joel Pennington, a man with exactly one small grayscale tattoo on his forearm that he got to market his tattoo company.
Listen, as a one tattoo haver bitch made.
So he founded a venture-backed telecom company in 2006 that he sold to Cisco in 2010. Then he founded a company called Slow Turtle, which provides custom wines to upscale establishments.
How long have you been a customer of that?
On their website, if you go to slowturtle.com, it says, notice, Slow Turtle is suspending operations indefinitely, so instead we can focus on revolutionizing the tattoo industry.
Yeah,
All right, wine completed it, mate. Some IT bullshit completed. Next up, tattoos.
Slow Turtle actually just like send you a glass bottle with loads of grapes in it. So it's like, just put it in a cellar or something and leave it. It'll turn into wine eventually.
I think it's just like, I mean, as a wine guy, I can say the idea of like custom wines beyond beyond the sort of lowest possible level of wine is a ludicrous idea. There is no wine that is more custom than, I don't know, like one particular grower's like Marsanne Roussanne blend. You can't make it more custom than that. Like,
well, you could customize the label.
Yeah, I think it's a marketing thing largely.
Yeah,
and then some like, you know, some various, I won't say hucksterism, but definitely not understanding. If he's gone from fundamentally not understanding wine to fundamentally not understanding tattoos. He's also Australian.
He's a man made in a lab to anger both me and you, Riley.
So what did they say for investors? It says the global tattoo market is highly lucrative and the industry is undergoing unprecedented growth. Black Dot is uniquely capable of satisfying the oversized demand for smaller, more detailed tattoos. Moreover, our focus on predictability, atmosphere, hygiene, and minimizing discomfort.
Imagine having like a tattoo that's like low resolution. Like, I know you can like blur a tattoo anyway, but imagine it's just working off of like a fucking PNG that you've sent them in.
Well, like a 60 by 60 and you've just blown it up across your whole back.
But like the thing is that like there is actually a trend of an emerging style. Well, it's not an emerging style, it's established style now called micro portraiture, which is like highly detailed portraits that are like super, super small. They don't age well because the way ink works in the skin is as it ages, it begins to spread in the lower layers of your skin, so the lines start to thicken. Something like this is just going to look like you just like got a gray marker and ran it across your arm.
Well, what if I want that?
Then go to a tattoo artist and get it.
So, why Joel? After his custom wine project, Slow Turtle, Joel took his interest in specialty drinks to Bellwether Coffee, a Bay Area startup focused on making roasting more accessible and easier to master. Bellwether used a system of sourcing roasting profiles from top roasters, uploading them to the cloud, and making them available to their next-generation roasters, enabling staff without training to bring roast to life, combining hardware, software, and cloud to centralize the art of coffee making. And we see this format of startup happen over and over and over again. We've seen it in cloud kitchens
as well. There's been like 50 coffee ones doing this exact thing.
Which is the whole idea being, we have found a way to try to remove expertise from something, mass produce it, and make it worse, but fundamentally without understanding the thing we're trying to do. As you have, I think you have at every point that I have talked about something that it does, you have given a pretty detailed explanation of why it absolutely will not work, or at least won't work well.
This man is going to send me into the afterlife with Mansa Musa, and we are going to have coffee and talk about tattoos and how much we hate this guy.
And how much you've been flipping bricks for him.
Yeah.
So Pennington took a page of the Bellwether playbook and applied it to another creative medium, centralizing the art of tattoo. Don't you wish that the art of tattoo were more centralized, Tom?
I mean, like, look, as an industry that does mass tax evasion, I don't think tattooing really wants to be centralized.
However, at first, the concept was to place automated tattoo devices in existing studios. However, this quickly shifted as the maintenance requirements, training possibility, and training process and possibility of operator error was too risky.
Look,
we made the tattoo gun that you can't use.
Look, as someone who has a lot of friends...
Sorry, it's an F-35 tattoo setup.
As someone who has like a lot of friends who are tattoo artists, it's like, if these people had met a single tattoo artist, they would have known immediately that it wouldn't work in a shop.
So the way that this sounds like it's almost, I don't know if this is the right analogy, but it's like, what if you got someone at a supermarket who would serve you and bag your stuff up to run the automated machine, which is like
got my neck tattoo at Tesco.
That's right, which is a different job.
Tesco
which is a different job, but like all it really serves is to sort of make the whole process more annoying. Like it doesn't really. But even with like the self-service checkout, there is like an argument, albeit like an imperfect one, to be like, okay, well, this is. This can be more efficient at a certain scale, right? There is kind of like a cost-cutting measure in there. And you can sort of understand the logic from that perspective. But like, I don't understand the logic with this one because there's no advertising as far as I'm aware that has said that, oh, this will be a faster way of getting a tattoo done. It doesn't say that it will be a pain-free way or like a less painful way of getting tattoos done.
There's less discomfort, but I don't think you can really say less pain.
Aside from being, again, restrained by the machine.
Yeah, but that's also like, well, no, when I think about getting a tattoo, like I don't, the discomfort of like, what's the discomfort? Like you kind of sit on unless you're getting like a tattoo in a really weird place.
To be honest, like, yeah, it hurts, but it feels great, is my opinion.
But it's like, but if it doesn't remove that element of like pain, then it's not really efficient there. So what this is, what this seems to be marketing as is like, we want to put this big and pointless machine into your tattoo shop.
Into our tattoo shop.
And your job is just to make sure it doesn't kill anyone.
Hit the button.
Yeah, like pretty much this is a machine designed by people that don't understand, to put it in a tech speak, the end user experience of someone getting a tattoo. And also the reason...
To join the Yakuza.
Yeah.
Right.
This machine, will it be able to do your Hamas face tattoo? Probably not. Will it be able to, tattoo your club card number on your neck? No. But they fundamentally misunderstand like the reasons why people get tattoos. Like I have a lot of tattoos that I got because I thought the design was cool. But it's the experience of getting it. And a friend of mine, I think I mentioned him early on, Dr. Adam McDade, who's a tattoo artist and completed his PhD relatively recently about the holistic experience of being a tattoo artist, is that like so much of it is actually like the personal connection you have with the person sitting in your chair and vice versa. Because like loads of my tattoos took like 5 hours, if not more. And like you're sitting there and like, yeah, you'll talk about a lot of bullshit, but like a lot of tattoo artists will say that like someone will come to them and it's a kind of therapeutic form of experience that they're either getting something to memorialize like lost loved ones or something that's meaningful to them. And like a lot of times like tattoo artists will have conversations with people that people don't really get to have with someone else. And like part of it is you're trapped there with that person in the chair for like a couple of hours. So you got to talk about something.
Yeah, and you better be nice because they are, sort of permanently marking.
Yeah, but it's also.
I mean, yeah, like not to get too personal. It was important to me that I got my tattoo done by a woman, for instance, which would not be the same had it been done by a machine. And even if I kind of like broke that seal of like, okay, I want to get tattoos that are like not important or symbolic, but just like I want them because I think they're cool and I want to do some like silly bullshit, right? I would still want to get my like cursive script neck tattoo that just says Big Tesco done by a person because that person would understand why it was funny.
Yeah, and like it's
just to bring it all sort of up one level. It's that when we see someone who wants to take one of the ways in which people interact with other humans, if like going to get a tattoo with someone or even like having a coffee meal, yes, that is an interaction that is alienated by the transaction, right? That is an alienated commercial interaction. And yet around the edges of it, sometimes there still exists some actual connection. Sometimes there still exists the fact that someone knows you and you know them, and this is the actual thing that enables it to work, to be pleasurable, right? is the connection. It's the person you're seeing, right? And it's happening around the edges of that transaction. And companies like this say, what if it was all transaction? What if we removed the vestige of human connection from it? Because that's what these motherfuckers want.
Yeah.
They want to get a tattoo without interacting with a kind of intimidating tattoo artist. They want to get a coffee without a barista giving them like an eyebrow raise. It is the pushing away, right, of any kind of human connection, even through the alienated transaction.
Great. We managed to make getting a tattoo a lonely experience. One thing which I didn't think it could be.
But also, like, they fundamentally misunderstand, like, the technical innovations that have happened in tattooing in the past, like, 20 years. Like, the two biggest ones, three. So, like, really, in the past 100 years, past thousands of years, really all you need is a sharp needle, a pigment that is then suspended in liquid, and then you're off to the races. You can make a tattoo. The inventions of tattoo machines in 1897 obviously made the process more expedient. The inventions of like new pigments in the 50s, like Sailor Jerry was very famous for the fact that he was the only tattoo artist that had purple. Like, the fact that purple was a new color and like a hype thing in the 1950s just shows how slow this process was. And over the past like 50 years or so, you have like kind of on the back end is like, you know, mailing lists for Flash, tattoo clubs, news networks, zines, and really like the three most innovative things that have come out in the past 20 years are, one, wireless machines, because you need a current for a tattoo machine to run. I'm not going to bog it down in explaining how a tattoo machine works, but it means that tattoo artists aren't laden down with like cables. iPads have been a huge innovation because it means that you don't have to spend time like painting Flash. You make one mistake, you have to throw the whole sheet out. Now you can just like blast through stuff. And Instagram has fundamentally changed how the tattoo industry works, and how
in all these cases, right? This is a good way. Like we shit a lot on like stupid technologies, but you can see how like the invention of some of these things enables you to do more, as opposed to the invention of these things which enables you to become like any other rentier, which is just to say, which is to say, theoretically, if this machine works well, which it wouldn't, anyone could have my design. It could be tattooed everywhere, but I need to extract rents for it, right? It's just what it's doing is it's saying, everybody is now alienated from the process. We are standing in between every single transaction, and the most successful people in the tattoo industry are going to become rentiers enabled by our platform specifically. But they say, what access will I get to Black Dot's service as an investor? Are there any value adds? This is in their FAQs. Yes, Black Dot will be making certain tattoo designs and collections available only to investors.
I wonder what they are, but like. Like, this, it's kind of one of those things, because there's always like VC-backed startups that like try and like disrupt the industry, and like even like today, like loads of artists don't like say, I don't use an iPad, and use it as like a sense of pride, that like I still do things by hand the old way. The fact that like tattooing without machines, so doing like hand poked and traditional methods, is like super popular at the moment, is getting more popular because you have people trying to do like return stuff with tattooing. But it's like, this is tattoos, you know, like understood by someone who has never gotten one, never talked to someone who has like a personal connection to tattooing, and like a tattoo artist, a tattoo studio. It's like trying to make wine and never having seen a grape.
Well, I
could do that. That's fine.
They say that they use new technologies to drive forward a positive path for art, artists, and people for whom the body is a canvas to tell their stories. The mission at Black Dot is to get a new way for people to get tattoos, and provide better mechanisms for artists to share and get compensated for their work, and reimagine it as a whole. And they've revealed a machine that now allows people to own tattoos as NFTs and earn royalties from them.
So I was going to
inevitably.
I was going to say this, like, it was this sort of going to head to this territory, because when they use the line, like, it will be better for artists, I'm like, yeah, this is a fucking NFT scam. Yeah. This feels like an NFT. So this is the tattoo machine that the NFT guys whose apes are now worth shit are going to get tattooed onto them, and it's gonna be even more unique because it's going to be mixed with their skin, and so that's why
their skin's already been burned off by the industrial UV lights.
Yeah,
at
I was gonna say like getting a tattoo of your bored ape is kind of useless because you're now blind. You can't see it.
You can't even see it. Yeah, that's
it's a real shoes for the footless situation.
But people will see your cool ape and they'll be like, "Wow, I'd love that ape," and your only choice will be to cut off your flesh and like sell it to them for.
So what? But you were never before this. You were never able to get a tattoo of the cover art of "Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness," the Smashing Pumpkins album. But now, you can.
I kind of think that I could, is the thing. Like, the right-click and save thing continues with you taking a photo of it to a tattoo artist and going, can you...
I can literally walk 75 meters away from this studio and do that.
You could go, you could show them the cool robot on that Linkin Park remix album and be like, I want that on my skin.
Yeah, like sorry, only the machine may dispense the album cover art.
I want to commemorate the best album of all time, which is the Linkin Park Jay-Z collab.
Yeah, well, they're reinventing it, but
I want that like 10 inches across, like as a back piece.
Look. Before we end though, I want to move on, which is I promised a Neom update.
I'm so excited.
You did.
As someone who is a listener of this show, I am so excited to talk about the dumbest city on the planet.
And we will be. So, there's a few updates. We should get a sound effect for when Neom announces a new region.
What, a kind of like a Neom thing?
Yes.
Neom
has announced a new region. A fifth region has joined Neom.
Okay. What fucking shape have they decided to do this time? What bullshit are we on here?
Okay, it's called Leja, first of all. Thank you for asking.
Okay.
And I think let me answer your question with a press release. Located in Neom.
I hate when that happens.
Located in Neom and steeped in history and mythology, Leja stars in the Gulf of Aqaba and the coast and its alluring waters in the west and winds inland to form a magnificent natural valley carved between 400-meter high mountains that have been crafted over centuries from power of nature and water.
What's the gimmick though? Because like every single thing in Neom has a kind of like Bond villain affect, right? Like I've seen their hydrogen plant, right? And if that isn't foreshadowing for James Bond blowing the fucking thing up, I don't know what is. Every single thing is like this. What's the thing?
I just love how much of a fan MBS is of IO Interactive, because every single Neom update is like, oh, new Hitman DLC drops.
So sorry,
with a $4 billion budget, none of it was spent on railings. Every single balcony completely unfenced.
There's a suspicious bald man with a barcode tattoo that he got off Black Dot wandering around. He has a very strange mid-Atlantic accent.
So, sorry, Alice, excuse me. Let me answer your question with the second paragraph of the press release.
Thank you.
Aligned with Neom's strategy to designate the majority of its land across its destinations and cities as a nature reserve, 95% of Leja will be preserved for nature and will combine innovative ecological design and construction techniques to ensure that development seamlessly blends into the landscape. Does that answer your question?
What nature? It's a desert. Nothing can grow there.
Well, sorry. I actually can't answer your question for real now. It's 3 hotels.
Oh, okay. So the thing about Bond villains, right, is that this is specifically a Hank Scorpio city. Because what we've done here is we've created a city that would plausibly have the Hammock District. Like, the sort of like you're in Hammock Megacity, where it's like, oh, if you want to get a hotel, can I get a hotel in the line? No. You have to go to Hotel City 1.
Taking the polycule on a romantic holiday to Neom.
So, here's the funny thing, though. Leja's 3 hotels have been intelligently and sensitively designed by world-leading architects to complement the surrounding nature, operate sustainably, but they only have 120 elegant boutique rooms and suites split evenly between 40 keys at each.
Well, that's because if you go to Neom for, on a vacation, you'll see how incredible it is and you'll move in immediately, vacating your room after only a day. The hotel industry too is really like the last refuge of the scoundrel here, I think. Like we've talked about it before with like OIO and other stuff, where it's like this is a real sort of like credulity gap sort of industry you're getting into here.
It's a real Jamal Khashoggi Hotel California situation, because you can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave.
Your luggage can leave. You can leave. You just have to moonwalk. But also, I love that there's a whole region of a country that is dedicated to 120 hotel rooms.
Yeah, the hotel room district. Well, what about this is surprising?
When are they going to invent Neom RoboCop? Being dispatched to Hotel District 1.
The funny thing is, that's sort of what they think that they're going to have, is that there's going to be automated law enforcement of a quote-unquote modern regulatory environment. That's from a different video we'll talk about in a sec.
Yes. Yeah, I have some thoughts about that video.
Well, so basically, it's 3 hotels, one of which is like an adventure hotel that descends the wadi like a staircase. For high-octane experiences in the surrounding areas.
Don't wadis usually flood?
I don't know. Probably not.
Okay.
This is the Polycule Hotel. Yeah. This is the one for the Polycule. You have 40 rooms.
My Polycule has been washed away in the flood.
The second property
did not happen to Moses.
The second property.
I think it's sort of a Noah vibe, to be honest.
The second property rises from the rock to sit prominently at the largest oasis, and the third is an immersive wellness retreat with a high-tech reflective facade. Once developed, Leja will offer an extensive selection of refined experiences and activities, including fine dining and contemporary restaurants, wellness facilities, and infinity pools. Which is like, can golf monarchs not imagine something that isn't a luxury hotel, a fine dining establishment, or a shopping destination?
The Captain Tom Robinson had to go somewhere.
The Saudis have the same design taste as Jeremy Fragrance.
Mm-hmm. Well, yes,
it's basically true.
Well, it's also just kind of like this weird. Yeah, it feels very much like Essex new builds. But what if it was a city?
If we did this in Essex, like if we did the kind of like mega city hotel development, but like off of the coast of Essex, I think that could really like bring us back as a country.
That's the other bizarre thing, right? And this is they have another one called Epicon that they just launched today.
Oh, for fuck's sake! Well, what district is that?
Well, I think that's at the beginning of the. I think
just
that's also in
Chelmsford.
Leja. Yeah, it's also in Leja, but it is 275-meter high crystal towers. Again, both hotels, but with 50 opulent residences, with nothing else. There is not a city around it. There's not a town. Where do the people who work there live? How do they get there? There's no roads,
right?
What?
We mentioned this a bit ago in the first paragraph of the press release, where you're like, these are sort of like so architecturally interesting. Neom is basically a project that allows every architecture firm in Europe and the US to just like skim money off of the Saudi Public Investment Fund. And, in order to do some, like, vaguely futuristic bullshit, and they'll indulge all of their other shit. But the thing is, everything about Neom, everything about the line, everything about this has the kind of feel of an architectural sketch. Right. And so all of the public services, all of the infrastructure, all of that stuff, what an architect would do in general is you design the big fancy building, right? You draw that, and then everything else, you quite literally, you like sketch that in, or you fill it in with some like, some free imagery that you found online or whatever. And just the same with this, where it's like, yeah, that stuff, that's going to get handled, that's not our department. And that's an entire city built to that principle.
Yeah, they're just building Sagrada Familia in the desert. It's like, we'll finish it eventually.
Well, here's the thing, right? It's one of my favorite details about Epicon is that and it has
my favorite detail about Epicon is you can come see the 2 vast and trunkless legs.
We call it Epicon. This sounds like something that I don't know, Penny Arcade would have sponsored in 2003.
I was a big fan of the review of this on Rock Paper Shotgun.
And again, they say it is people will be able to enjoy unequaled service amid a transcendental landscape, a place for free thinkers and free spirits, the starting point of great adventures. But it's just the same luxury hotel again and again.
When I think about free spirits, I think about Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
It's just the same hotels and resorts built again and again and again and again and again. But that's the thing, right? And this is what I want to move on to before we end, which is that Neom has released another video, which is a construction update, right? They have updated on the construction, and that's the thing. They have enough money, and that people will just go along with it, that there are now tens of thousands of people who are in the desert in the northwest of Saudi Arabia, and they are building something.
Yeah, I mean, this has the best chance to succeed of any of these like city building projects, right? Absent the Saudi economy just collapsing overnight.
See, I would just love the idea if they just had Baz from Chelmsford out there as project managers. Like, yeah, MBS, yeah, it's not going well. Yeah, we're slightly over budget. We ran out of bricks. We need more steel, but we've plenty of slaves.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. We talk about in this
grand designs. Kevin MacLeod showing out to be like, Muhammad has committed himself to an audacious building schedule, and I'm worried about how many slaves he's running through.
What if Neom and the entire Neom project is the longest running Channel 4 show, and Kevin MacLeod has just been out there filming successive episodes of the best series of Grand Designs? You just have MBS arguing with his wife about the, I don't like the skylight there.
She's pregnant, and So, we're moving into a trailer on the construction site of the line.
We have displaced.
She looks miserable.
We've displaced several native tribes.
So this video, right? It shows that construction is proceeding. So they're digging a big it's the construction of credulity. They are digging a big trench in the desert as though it will be filled by something. But that's the thing. Mm-hmm. There are now there are 60,000 construction workers there. Don't ask them what basis they're employed. There's several thousand more employees. They've invested $5.6 billion in building 10 residential communities to house 95,000 people. Those residential communities, by the way, they are flat and blob shaped. They're not aligned.
Cool. Mm-hmm. Of course, because those are for the peasants, right?
Well, and that's what the only thing they've actually built so far is they built a big hospital that says Neom Hospital on it. We don't know what's inside. It could they
Hamas base probably.
Yeah. They've built a number of shipping container style temporary accommodations for workers in the desert. And they've continued to dig the gigantic trench.
Listen, there is a certain masculine urge when you go and see sand that you just want to dig a big hole, and I gotta respect it.
So they say Neom will offer the best, and this is what I think both caught Alice and my attention, is they say Neom will offer the best international standards in relation to tax, regulatory, and commercial law.
Yeah, that was the one bit that kind of struck me as relatively dark in the video. It's like, listen, it's gonna be so libertarian, you have no idea. And the thing is, between this place and the California one in Solano County, they're really those are the two most likely big libertarian projects to succeed. And I really don't like the Saudi government sort of whispering in my ear, effectively you will be able to own a person here. Yeah. You can do whatever the fuck you want. We're not looking into anything that happens. We will take a monegasque level of tax off you, and in return for you being there, you want to get up to some really sick shit, you fucking fill your boots, you go for it.
And so far it seems right they are you actually look into the contracts they've been awarded, you can find what contracts they've awarded for this, and they're starting to order, say, contract delivery for modular apartments for Neom. But that's just this is just normal apartments that are just being built for the upper level staff of Neom. Mm-hmm. What they are doing is, in the service of trying to create a kind of futuristic libertarian paradise, they are creating a much more formalized caste system, drawing people from all around the world and just putting them in Neom. They're basically creating a kind of heavy-handed metaphor for I don't know, world systems theory all in one place.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of see the way I see this going is, in say 2035 or whatever, podcasting hasn't worked out for me, and I've had to sell myself into slavery or whatever, and I'm a maid at Neom, right? The work day there is you live in a kind of shitty container village thing, and you commute into the one tiny section of the line that got built that amounts to a big shopping mall, where maybe 50 absolute pervert freak shows live. And yeah, that's how it's going to be. That's as much as they're going to build.
Yeah, Neom is just becoming the real portal to the lament configurations. Like, we have such worlds to show you.
Anyway, I think that's all we have time for today, because you have to go to a country music show, Tom.
I do.
You should check out Beneath the Skin, which recently won an award.
Yeah, we recently won Best History Podcast in the UK at the Independent Podcast Awards. We're a show about, we call it The History of Everything, told through the history of tattooing. So we connect weird stuff like Russian prison culture during the Soviet Union. We have an episode coming out this week about the weird cultural Russian imperialism in Uzbekistan with the body of the Altai princess. And like loads of like weird stuff. We have an episode coming up about a gay Nazi who got sent to a concentration camp and then got out, got sent back, and then become a very influential tattoo artist and photographer. So yeah, if that weird shit sounds interesting, check it out.
Yeah, perfect. All right. Anyway, we want to thank you very much for listening today. Remind you, we have a Patreon. It's $5 a month. You get a second episode every week. And also, of course, that link for medical aid for Palestinians still in the description. So do donate to that as well. Thank you again, Tom. And we will see you on the free episode in a couple of short days. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.